In this lesson, we'll take a look at how to create a winter landscape with pastels. We'll start on gray-toned Canson-Mi-Teintes pastel paper. For this demonstration, I'm using the less textured side of the paper. We'll start by creating a base tone for our sky. In this case, we'll apply white and gently blend it in with our finger. Then we can start adding a bit of variation to this color by adding a bit of warm gray. We'll also blend this application in with our finger. Then, for a bit of variety, we'll add a bit of light blue close to the lower portion of the sky. And then we can enhance portions of the sky with additional applications of the white. We'll start establishing some of the distant trees with a light application of the warm gray. And then we'll establish some of the shadows in the distant tree line with a bit of the light blue. Since this distant tree line is much further away from the viewer, these applications can be light and airy. We'll slowly start to push some of the darker values with the warm gray. These applications are then gently blended with the finger, creating subtle changes in value. It may be tempting to jump right into the details that you observe, but in this case, we want to create a nice contrast between the distant tree line and the trees that we'll include in the foreground. So these distant details are going to be quite muted. We'll go back with the light blue, enhancing some of the shadowed locations. And then with the black pastel pencil, we can start to indicate some details. We're going to leave some of the details out that we observe, but we are going to create a bit of variety in the value. We can mute these with an additional application of the white pastel pencil over the top, and then reestablish the line of snow that happens right in front of these trees. Even though these distant details are soft and muted, we can still see a few of the trees that extend up from the distant tree line. We'll include these using the black pastel pencil and then soften and mute them using the white pastel pencil over the top. For these distant trees, we'll simply pull strokes up just as the tree grows with the black pastel pencil, enhancing shadowed areas with a more jagged mark. We'll continue this process, creating subtle details with the black pastel pencil, and then muting them with the white pastel pencil. We'll add a bit of warmth to the sky with a very light cream, and then gently blend it into the background. For the tops of the trees, we'll add a bit of the warm gray. We'll gently blend this application in with our finger as well. And then over the top, a bit of white is added to indicate some of the snow and frost on the top of the trees. We'll strengthen some of the blue that happens in the shadowed areas. And then we'll add a few indications of shadow with the black pastel pencil. Then we can continue working down the picture plane, again establishing the line of snow in front of the trees. A few smaller trees and bits of branches that are coming up from the snow are added with the black pastel pencil. Then, before continuing with the middle ground, we'll establish some of the colors in the foreground. For this example, I really want to play up the color combination of oranges and blues. These colors contrast each other because they're complementary colors. For this reason, quite a bit of burnt sienna is added in the foreground. Then it's back to the middle ground and back to the warm gray. We'll establish some of the overall shapes of the groupings of trees that happen here. We'll gently blend these applications with our finger as we work, and then we can reestablish some of the lines of snow with a strong application of a white. The trees found in the middle ground are slightly more defined than the trees in the distant tree line. For this reason, we'll add additional visible branches with the black pastel pencil. Here again, strokes are pulled upward as the tree grows, allowing lines to taper at the end of each branch. We can also see more colors in this section, so a bit of burnt sienna is added. It's a good idea to have a bit of variety in the stroke, so some of the areas of the tree will be a bit more bolder with the marks made with the pastel pencil. This will create a bit more variety in value and create the indication of some subtle shadows happening on the left side of each of the trees. We'll add a slight indication of a highlight on the right side of the tree with a yellow ochre. This area of highlight is only visible on the largest tree. To create a bit more unity in the piece, we'll add bits of this yellow ochre in other areas in the snow closer to the viewer. We'll now add a few trees on the right side of the picture plane. We'll adjust the level of detail that we create according to where these trees are located. Trees that are higher up on the picture plane, of course, are further away, so less detail is included. Trees that are closer, of course, will have more detail, and the strength of the mark made for them will be much bolder. Here again, we'll strengthen up some of the shadowed areas with the blue, and we'll add a few additional colors as well. A bit of purple is added in this case. And to create more unity, we'll add the purple in the foreground as well. Whenever you add a color to a scene, it's a good idea to include it in another location so that the piece is more harmonious. The grouping of trees that we're working on at this point is much closer to the viewer, so the shadows are quite a bit stronger as well. So a cool gray is used here that's darker than the warm gray that we've been using. We'll add a few indications of some light peeking in through the distant tree line with a white. And then over the top, we can return with the black pastel pencil, establishing some of the visible details. White is applied across the top of these trees to indicate a bit of the frost and snow. We'll add a few additional marks of the white to create a bit more variety and contrast in the middle ground. As we work towards the foreground, more colors, of course, are visible. In this case, we'll use a dark brown pastel pencil to establish some of the branches peeking their way through the snow. We'll continue making marks in the foreground and adjusting the colors as we go. In this case, a bit more of the light blue is added, as well as additional applications of various browns. We'll darken up some of the shadows with a bit of black. We're careful to blend these black applications in so that they don't become too powerful. And then over the top, applications of yellow ochre and white. For more control, we'll use the black pastel pencil. We can include some details like visible branches and additional colors, in this case a bit more purple. We don't want to lose our color combination of blue and orange, so we'll add additional applications of the light blue and burnt sienna for our orange. We'll darken up these areas with a bit of dark brown, and then we'll continue to apply details with the lighter colors like yellow ochre and white. We'll strengthen up some of the shadows with the black pastel pencil. And then we can continue strengthening up highlights with the white pastel and adding bits of color with the light blue. Now we can establish the tree, the dominant tree here in the foreground. We'll start with the dark brown, establishing the larger bits of the tree, the trunk, and some of the branches. As we pull strokes out for the branches, we'll release pressure, making a smaller mark. The marks made for the branches of the tree should be pulled outward, changing directions with an irregular pattern. If we become too controlled with these marks, we risk the tree looking unnatural. Now that we've got some of the larger portions of the tree in place, we'll go back with the black pastel pencil, establishing some of the smaller branches. Here again, we'll pull these strokes outward from the larger portions of the tree, allowing these strokes to taper at the end. You'll want to make sure that your pastel pencil is nice and sharp for these applications. One thing to consider when drawing a winter tree like this is that there are usually more branches than you think there are. Including lots and lots of small branches is never a mistake, especially for a tree this close to the viewer. One thing that you're likely to notice with a tree like this is that the branches will grow up towards the light. This means most of these smaller branches extend upward rather than down from the larger portions of each one of the branches. We can strengthen up some of the shadows at this point with a bit of black. Most of these shadows occur on the left side of the tree. On the lighter side of the tree, a bit of dark brown is added, and we'll also include a bit of light blue and burnt sienna to create a bit more variety in the color of the tree. A smaller tree and a few branches exist on the lower portion. We'll use the black pastel pencil to indicate these details. Then we'll strengthen up some of the highlights in the foreground with a bit of white and strengthen the shadows with a bit of dark brown. We'll add a bit more of our burnt sienna and then reestablish some of the details. We'll add a few bits of white to the trunk of the tree and a bit more yellow ochre in our foreground. And now our pastel winter landscape is complete. If you enjoyed this video, then subscribe to the channel. And if you're ready to learn even more about drawing and painting, then check out our comprehensive membership program, which includes video courses, weekly live lessons, ebooks, lesson plans, and much, much more. To learn more about our program, just click on the button in the center of your screen or click on the card in the upper right-hand corner. Thank you so much for watching.